My wife's family told me not to come for Christmas. They mocked Mitish behind my back and treated me like I didn't matter. But that same night, their truth came out. And everything changed. It was already past midnight when I got home, the kind of midnight that doesn't feel romantic or peaceful, just heavy. My hands were stiff from the cold and from the thin hospital gloves that never quite keep the chill out. My shoulders ached from leaning over an elderly woman in the ER, counting breaths with her, whispering encouragement like it could physically pull air back into her lungs. I'd skipped lunch again, lived off burnt coffee and adrenaline, the same routine I'd had for years. Still, when I unlocked the door to our small apartment, I felt that quiet flicker in my chest because Christmas was close. The string lights I'd hung last week blinked softly against the living room wall. They weren't fancy, just a cheap set from a corner store, but they gave the place a pulse, like something was still alive here. My eyes drifted to the bag by the door. Packed already. I'd wrapped the gifts the night before, carefully, gold ribbon because Patricia liked gold. There was a bottle of red wine tucked inside, not expensive enough to impress her, but good. And a large container of spiced rice, the dish everyone raved about every year and somehow forgot I made. They always assumed it came from a catering service. I never corrected them. Correcting people like that never changes anything. I had just slipped off my shoes when my phone rang. I didn't check the screen. I already knew who it was. Harper, my wife's younger sister. Always polished, always composed, the kind of woman who could say, "darling," with a straight face and spend 20 minutes critiquing the vibe of a butter knife. "Hi," she said, voice syrupy. I braced myself, expecting a last-minute errand. Cookies, decorations, something forgotten. Instead, she said gently, "Don't come for Christmas." At first, I honestly thought I misheard her. "Sorry?" I said. There was a pause, then she repeated it, softer. "Don't come. We're just trying to make a certain impression this year." I stood there staring at the blinking lights, suddenly too bright. "Impression?" She went on like she was explaining something obvious. "Grayson will be there, my boyfriend. I've mentioned him, right?" Of course she had. The billionaire tech investor, first million at 19. Wine that cost more than my monthly rent. "We just want things to feel elevated," she added, like I was a scuff on polished marble. I didn't answer. There wasn't anything I could say that wouldn't sound small or angry. Then another voice slid onto the call, sharp and efficient. Patricia, my mother-in-law. She didn't bother with greetings. "If you show up, we'll just pretend we don't know you," she said calmly, like she was reading a grocery list. I heard Harper inhale, maybe surprised by the bluntness, but no one corrected her. I pressed the phone tighter to my ear. "So, I'm not invited," I said. A pause. Harper came back. "It's just one dinner. Maybe next year." I ended the call without another word. The apartment felt hollow, like all the sound had been sucked out. I walked to the tree, barely 5 feet tall, missing ornaments. But it was ours. I looked back at the bag, the gifts, the wine, the rice, and something cracked under my ribs. Not anger, not even sadness, just emptiness. I sat down on the couch and stared at the lights blinking red, blue, green, yellow, like heartbeats I no longer felt. What hit me wasn't the exclusion. I'd never been the favorite. Too quiet, too plain. Just a nurse, even though I'd worked 3 jobs to put my wife through law school. What hit me was how easy it was for them to erase me. How comfortable they were pretending I didn't belong. I remembered years ago when Patricia called crying because they were 2 months behind on the mortgage. I wired the money the next morning. Harper totaled her car in college. I was the only one who co-signed when her credit tanked. They knew I would show up. I always did. Until now. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there letting the silence settle. And in that silence, something became very clear. This wasn't about a billionaire. It wasn't even about Christmas. It was about control. I had never been part of them. I was useful, convenient, a man-shaped support beam. I didn't fit their image, so they edited me out. Quiet men don't make scenes. We wait, and sometimes silence is the loudest sound in the room. I turned off the lights and let the darkness take over. I didn't call my wife. She was already staying with them to help prep. Let them polish their silverware. Let them rehearse their stories. Because what I had, they couldn't measure. And they were about to learn what it meant to erase the man who held everything together. The next morning didn't hurt the way I expected. It felt numb. I didn't call anyone. I didn't ask for explanations. I already knew them. I wasn't rich. I didn't smell like designer cologne. I worked nights in trauma bays and came home smelling like antiseptic. I was real. And real didn't photograph well. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around the apartment I paid most of the rent for. The same place they'd celebrated birthdays and holidays. Took photos. Laughed. Ate food I cooked. They never noticed who paid for what. They never noticed me. I opened a black folder tucked behind some old journals. Inside were bank records, wire transfers, lease documents. While they were busy ignoring me, they'd forgotten I handled the back end. Patricia's house, Harper's boutique, the family emergency fund. All of it ran through me. They never asked. They never wanted to know. They just liked that things worked. That morning, I made coffee and watched the sun rise. I didn't feel rage. I felt clarity. I logged into the accounts. The emergency fund froze. Harper's rent guarantee withdrawn. Patricia's secondary authorization removed. No messages. No announcements. I just stopped. Not out of spite. Out of balance. When a tree withdraws its roots, it doesn't scream. The leaves just fall. I went for a walk. No phone. No destination. The air felt cleaner. They didn't want me at Christmas. Fine. They wouldn't get the man who paid for the heat, the food, the peace. I'd given them a stage for years. Now I was taking the lights with me. By Christmas Eve, my phone was silent. No one asked why I wasn't coming. They assumed I'd beg. I didn't. I stayed home, cooked for myself, drank the wine meant for their table. I imagined the performance without me, the candles, the curated laughter, the billionaire arriving last. They didn't feel it yet, but they would. And somewhere deep down, I knew this was only the beginning. Christmas Eve came and went without a single knock on my door. No last-minute guilt call, no fake apology wrapped in holiday cheer. I didn't expect one, but the silence still confirmed something I already knew. They assumed I'd cave, that I'd show up anyway with a bag of food and a practiced smile, willing to be ignored as long as I was allowed in the room. They were wrong. I woke up late on Christmas morning, the kind of late that only comes when your body finally stops bracing for disappointment. The apartment was quiet. No rushed plans. No expectations. I made coffee, strong and bitter, and drank it standing by the window while watching snow drift down onto the street. Somewhere across town, they were probably already in costume. Patricia would be arranging the table like a magazine spread. Harper would be checking her reflection for the 10th time, rehearsing casual laughs. My wife would be moving between rooms, helping where she was told, saying little, trying not to feel like she'd chosen the wrong side. I didn't check my phone until noon. There were no messages. That was the tell. When people truly believe they've done nothing wrong, they don't reach out. They wait for you to apologize for reacting. I spent the day doing nothing that looked impressive. I cleaned. I cooked something simple. I read. I walked. And with every hour that passed, I felt lighter, like I'd set down a weight I didn't realize I'd been carrying for years. The first crack came the morning after Christmas. My phone buzzed while I was tying my shoes to head out for groceries. A missed call. Unknown number. Then another. Same number. I let it ring the third time before answering. Is this him? A woman asked, breathless. Who's calling? I said. This is Monica from Crestline Property Management. I'm calling regarding the Midtown retail lease. We were informed that Brinfield Holdings is no longer guaranteeing the payments. We need to discuss next steps. I closed my eyes for a moment. Harper's Boutique. The one she loved to call her passion project. The one she credited to grit and manifestation and Instagram hustle. That's correct, I said calmly. Brinfield Holdings has exited. There was a pause. Then we'll need to speak with Ms. Harper immediately. The lease? She's aware, I said, even though she wasn't. Thank you. I ended the call and finished tying my shoes. My hands were steady. That surprised me. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't excited. I just felt done. By the time I came back from the store, there were 3 messages on my phone. All from Harper. Can you call me? This isn't funny. What did you do? I didn't respond. An hour later, Patricia called. I watched her name light up the screen and let it go to voicemail. She left one message. Her voice was tight, controlled, trying not to sound panicked. There seems to be some confusion with the accounts. Call me. Confusion. That word again. The favorite word of people who've just discovered consequences. I didn't call back. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table and opened my laptop. I logged into the last account, the Family Emergency Fund, the one they love to brag about at brunch, the rainy day safety net. I transferred management authority to myself alone and locked withdrawals behind verification they didn't have access to. It wasn't revenge. It was accuracy. That money had always been mine to manage. I'd just finally accepted it. By evening, my wife texted, "Why aren't you answering them?" I stared at the message for a long time. I typed, erased, typed again. Finally, I wrote one line. Because no one answered me when it mattered. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. This is getting messy. I smiled, not because it was funny, but because it was honest. Messy is what happens when the invisible support disappears and people finally notice gravity. The next day, December 27th, I got a voicemail from a man I'd never spoken to directly before. Calm voice, polished, used to being listened to. This is Grayson Ellison. I believe we should talk. I didn't call him back right away. I didn't need to. The fact that he reached out told me everything. He'd noticed. He'd seen something he didn't like. That night, social media started shifting. Harper's posts slowed. Comments disappeared. One of her usual sponsors stopped liking her content. Nothing dramatic. Just quiet distance. The kind that makes people nervous because there's no one to confront. On December 28th, my wife finally came home. She stood in the doorway like she wasn't sure she still belonged there. Her coat still on. Her keys clenched too tight. She looked tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. "They're panicking," she said. I nodded. "I know. They don't understand why you're doing this." I looked at her then. Really looked. "That's the problem," I said. "They never tried." She swallowed. "Harper might lose the store." "I didn't open it," I said quietly. "I just stopped pretending I was the bank." Patricia called again that night, then again the next morning. Then Harper started texting apologies that didn't quite sound like apologies. They sounded like strategy. "We didn't mean it like that. You know how Mom is. This is blowing up more than it should. More than it should. As if dignity has a cap." On December 30th, Grayson called again. This time, I answered. He didn't waste time. I left the party early, he said. Not because of you, because of them. I listened. I saw the way they talked about you when they thought you weren't important, he continued. People show you who they are when they think nothing's at stake. I said nothing. I walked out, he said. And I walked away from Harper. That was the moment something inside me finally settled. Not triumph, not satisfaction, closure. I'm not calling to fix anything, he added. I just thought you should know. I do, I said. After that, the dam broke. Patricia showed up at my door 2 days later. Sunglasses, gift bag. Apologies rehearsed like lines in a play. Harper waited in the car. My wife stood behind me, silent. They wanted me to talk to Grayson, to explain, to smooth it over, to lend them my credibility now that it mattered. I listened, then I said no. I closed the door gently, the way you close a book you've finished reading. That night, I slept better than I had in years. And somewhere deep inside, I knew this still wasn't the end. Because people like them don't accept silence easily. They escalate, they spin, they rewrite. They were about to try something else. They didn't accept the closed door. I knew they wouldn't. People who are used to being carried don't recognize strength until it stops lifting them. 2 days after Patricia showed up with her gift bag and rehearsed remorse, the story changed. Not with apologies, but with narratives. It started quietly. A cousin reached out, asking if I was okay. An old family friend messaged my wife, saying they were worried about me. Then someone from work pulled me aside, gentle voice, careful words, asking if everything at home was stable. That's when I understood the pivot. If they couldn't pull me back in with guilt, they'd frame my absence as instability. If silence couldn't be controlled, it would be labeled a problem. By Friday, the email arrived. It wasn't sent to me. It was sent about me. A carefully worded message circulated through extended family and a few mutual contacts. Concerned tone, soft language, phrases like withdrawn, isolating. Under a lot of pressure lately. No accusations, just enough suggestion to plant doubt. Patricia's signature sat neatly at the bottom, like she was hosting a charity drive. My wife showed it to me without saying a word. I read it once, then again. I felt nothing rise in my chest. No anger, no panic, just confirmation. This was who they were when charm didn't work. "Do you want to respond?" she asked. I shook my head. No. "But they're making it sound like—" "I know," I said. "And that's fine." She looked at me then. Really looked. Like she was seeing a man she hadn't noticed before. Not angry, not pleading, just steady. That night, Grayson posted one sentence online. No names, no context, just truth. Watch how people treat the ones they think can't give them anything. It tells you everything. The reaction was immediate and brutal in the quietest way possible. Not outrage, distance. Sponsors paused. Calls stopped getting returned. Invitations dried up. The kind of consequences that don't trend, but ruin dinners. Harper's Boutique lost 2 vendors within a week. Patricia's social calendar thinned. My father-in-law tried to smooth things over with people who suddenly had other commitments. No one said why. They didn't have to. The final knock came on a Sunday afternoon. All 3 of them stood there this time. No gift bag, no sunglasses. Just exhaustion and pride fighting for space on their faces. They didn't ask to come in. They didn't pretend anymore. "We need you to help us fix this," Patricia said. I didn't answer. Harper's voice cracked. "He listens to you." I met her eyes for the first time in weeks. He listened because he saw who you were when you thought it didn't matter. Silence stretched. My father-in-law cleared his throat. We're family. I nodded. That's why this matters. Patricia stepped forward. We made mistakes. You made choices, I said calmly. And now you're meeting them. They waited. For anger, for negotiation, for conditions. I gave them none. I'm not calling him, I said. I'm not explaining you. I'm not managing the fallout of things I didn't break. Harper's shoulders slumped. So that's it? Yes, I said. That's it. I closed the door gently. No slam, no speech, just finality. Inside, the apartment was quiet in the good way. My wife sat on the couch, hands folded, eyes wet but clear. You're not wrong, she said softly. I know, I replied. She nodded. I just wish I'd seen it sooner. So did I said. And I meant it. Weeks passed. The noise faded. The stories found new targets. That's how it always goes. I returned to my routines. Work, walks, coffee in the morning light. I helped Andre with his grant proposal, watched him win it, took pride in that. One evening, my wife asked me if I missed them. I thought about it, about the dinners, the performances, the way I used to shrink so the room could feel bigger. No, I said. I miss who I thought they were. She understood. On the last night of the year, I stood by the window and watched fireworks bloom over the city. No audience, no validation, just quiet color against the dark. They didn't erase me. They revealed me. And when I stopped fighting for a seat at their table, I finally learned how to build my own. That was the real ending. Not revenge, not applause, just peace.